Hey there, CineMaster fans. Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. The movie There's Only One Jimmy Grimble begins with a boy named Jimmy spends some time playing football alone in his neighborhood in Manchester. He returns to his room and reads a book on performance anxiety. Jimmy seems quite bothered that, despite his efforts to become a better footballer, he isn't seeing the progress he expects. Shortly after, Jimmy's mom, Donna, arrives home on a bike with her new boyfriend, Johnny. Donna seems quite excited and calls Jimmy to come downstairs to meet Johnny. Jimmy doesn't look as excited as his mom, and he also struggles to understand why Donna would fall for someone like Johnny, who looks weird. Jimmy then says that his mom doesn't even like bikes, but Donna denies ever saying this. Johnny finds this surprising, and he tells Jimmy about his bike and how expensive it is. Jimmy doesn't seem interested in this, and Donna tells Johnny that her son is actually into football. Johnny says he also likes football, and as he plays against Jimmy, he knocks him to the ground and takes the ball from him. Donna complains about how aggressive Johnny was, but he says that he didn't know Jimmy wasn't strong. He then offers to teach Jimmy some kung fu to build his strength. As Jimmy watches him, Johnny shows off some kung fu stances. Jimmy finds this funny, and Johnny looks pleased that he made Donna's son smile. Almost immediately, Johnny and Donna head into the house to drink some tea, but Jimmy still stays outside. He eventually enters the house just as Johnny is about to leave, and Donna says goodbye to her new boyfriend. After this, Donna realizes that Jimmy doesn't like the fact that she's with Johnny. She then mentions that Johnny is nice, and he makes her laugh. Jimmy still doesn't look impressed, but he decides to keep his thoughts to himself. The next day, Jimmy gets to school and hides just behind a car in front of the gate. He then watches two bullies, Psycho and Gordon, standing at the gate to harass other students who are just arriving. The boys happen to be Manchester United fans, and they like bullying people who support their rivals, Manchester City. Interestingly, Jimmy happens to be one of the very few Man City fans at the school, and he often gets bullied for this. After a while, the school's PE teacher, Eric, arrives at the school, and Gordon tries to annoy him by saying that he'll soon lose his job. Eric thinks about saying something to Gordon, but he just walks away and ignores him. Much later, during recess, Jimmy spots a new girl named Sarah walking around the premises, and he seems attracted to her. Interestingly, Sarah smiles at him as she keeps walking, and Jimmy looks happy about this. Almost immediately, Gordon, Psycho, and some other bullies approach Jimmy and try to attack him. Jimmy quickly runs away, but ends up getting stuck at a dead end. The boys then beat him up and pee on his Manchester City bag. Eric sees this happening through the bathroom window, but he decides not to do anything about it. Shortly after, the boys leave Jimmy alone, and he heads to the restroom to wash his bag. As he leaves, he walks to the notice board and sees that Eric has just put up an announcement for interested students to come for the football team's trials later that day. After Eric walks away, Jimmy covers the announcement with another piece of paper so that no one will see it. Much later, Jimmy heads to the school field for the trials, and he sees the school team's goalkeeper already training. Shortly after, Gordon and Psycho get to the field and try to bully Jimmy for covering the announcement on the notice board. Before they can beat him, Eric gets to the field and tells the students that they'll be playing a mini-game of 6 players on each team. Since there are only 12 players around for the trials, Jimmy seems happy about this because he'll get to play in one of the mini-teams. While the training is going on, the school headmaster meets with some board members to discuss how they'll get funding for the school's sports hall. Suddenly, Gordon's dad, Ken, interrupts the meeting and complains about how the school hasn't won any trophies in a long time. He then talks about how he got to the final of the Manchester Schools Cup when he was younger. He adds that his performance at the competition got him a chance to play for a football club named Crew Alexandra. As he keeps complaining about the school's lack of success in recent years, he offers to donate a huge amount of money to the sports hall project only if the team gets to the finals of the Manchester Schools Cup. The headmaster seems impressed by this, and the board members also applaud Ken. Back on the field, Gordon happens to be the best player on the team, and as he's about to score a goal, he kicks the ball to Jimmy's face. Jimmy immediately falls to the ground, but the ball still ends up in the back of the net. Even though Gordon looks happy about this, Eric tells him that he won't tolerate such aggressive play. He also mentions that the goal is disallowed, but Gordon believes he did nothing wrong. As he insults Eric, the PE teacher tells him to leave the field, but he refuses to do this. Eric then walks away to report Gordon to the headmaster. When he gets to the headmaster's office, Eric explains what happened, but the headmaster doesn't agree with his decision to kick Gordon off the team. As Eric looks confused, Ken enters the office and the PE teacher realizes that the headmaster wants Gordon to be on the team because of his dad. After school closes for the day, Gordon heads out with his dad and mocks Eric while saying that he's back on the team. Ken also tells Eric that his son is the next Michael Owen, but the PE teacher just ignores them. After they leave, the headmaster tells Eric that they can't afford to drop Gordon because he's the team's best player. He also asks what team they'll be facing in the first round, and Eric says it's an away game against Wreckingham. The headmaster believes it should be an easy game, but Eric doesn't seem so sure about it. Meanwhile, Jimmy covers his face and starts singing on his way home. Coincidentally, Sarah is sitting nearby and she applauds him for singing well. Jimmy looks shocked to see her, and as she asks for his name, he tells her, Jimmy Grumble. As she then jokes about how he tucked in his shirt, Jimmy seems nervous and eventually runs away. Later that night, Jimmy heads to his mom's workplace to see her, but she is still quite busy. Her boss then tells Jimmy that his mom is going to stay longer to help out with some tasks. Jimmy doesn't seem happy about this, and he eventually leaves when his mom is unable to talk to him. On his way home, he bumps into Gordon and Psycho again, but he quickly runs away. The boys immediately follow him, but Jimmy gets help from an old lady named Alice, who lives in an abandoned house that has been marked for demolition. As she takes him to hide in her room, Jimmy finds the place weird and starts rethinking his decision to follow Alice. Just before he thinks about leaving, he sees a pair of boots hanging in the room. As he stares at them, Alice says she has seen Jimmy playing football alone in the neighborhood. She then tells him to take the pair of boots, but he says that he already has his own. It's all right, I've got a pair of hunks. Alice says they're quite special, and Jimmy asks if they're magical boots. Alice says they are, and she tells Jimmy to take them home. On the way home, Jimmy doesn't seem to believe what Alice told him, and he throws the boots into a waste dump. When he gets home, he sees his mom's ex, Harry, trying to apologize to her for how they broke up. Interestingly, Harry had quite a good relationship with Donna, and he was even the one who took Jimmy to his first city game. However, the only problem he had was that he was already married while he was dating Donna. As he keeps trying to beg Donna to listen to him and accept his flowers, she just ignores him and heads into the house. Harry looks quite sad, but as he sees Jimmy, he also tries to talk to him. Jimmy doesn't seem interested in this, and he just heads into the house to meet his mom. The next day at school, Jimmy sees Sarah standing up to some bullies, and he looks happy about this. After he heads out to join the school team for their trip to Wreckingham, Gordon and his fellow bullies attack him again. Gordon then opens Jimmy's bag and sees his new boots. Since Gordon doesn't want Jimmy to be part of the team, he brings out the boots and throws them into a moving waste truck. Jimmy looks disappointed by this, but he then remembers the boots Alice gave him. Almost immediately, Jimmy runs back to the neighborhood to look for the boots in the waste dump. After he sees the boots, he picks them up and starts running back to school. Where's Jimmy? Before he gets there, Eric asks where Jimmy is because they're about to leave for the game. Gordon then mentions that Jimmy lost his boots. Eric looks disappointed because they won't have a sub for the game, but Ken says it shouldn't be a problem as long as he keeps the players on their toes. He adds that it's one of the things he learned at Crew, and the headmaster tells Eric to listen to Ken because he used to be a professional footballer. Eric still doesn't think it's a good idea to play Wreckingham without a sub, but he eventually decides to go on with the 11 players on the bus. Just before he leaves, Jimmy stops the bus and Eric looks relieved to see that he now has a sub. Gordon seems pissed by this, and as he sees Jimmy's boots, he collects them and jokes about how old they look. Unfortunately, the boots contain dirty water, and as Gordon flips them, his clothes get stained. He looks disgusted by this, but Jimmy seems happy about what happened. Shortly after, the team gets to the field and their game begins. Interestingly, Wreckingham's pitch happens to be in bad condition, and their players also appear to be very rough. Despite this, Gordon scores the first goal and gives his side an early lead. As the game continues, Eric doesn't seem to care about it, and Jimmy finds this surprising. After a while, Eric complains about how rough the game is, but the ref refuses to listen to him. Gladiators of football, back off pal. At the start of the second half, the ref scores a goal for Wreckingham, but Jimmy doesn't seem to understand how this is legal. Toward the end of the game, Gordon is fouled badly by a Wreckingham player, and since he can't continue playing, Eric subs in Jimmy to take his place. Jimmy is shocked by this, and he looks nervous as he enters the field. Just as Reckingham starts a counterattack to score the winning goal, Jimmy happens to be the last defender at the back, and he looks quite nervous. Suddenly, the Reckingham player kicks the ball to Jimmy, and as he clears it away, he falls to the ground, but ends up scoring the winning goal from his own half. Eric and the other players rejoice with Jimmy, but Gordon seems pissed that he wasn't the one who helped the team win the game. Shortly after, Jimmy goes to find Alice at the abandoned house. When he sees her, she asks if he scored with the boots, and he says he did. As he talks about how he scored, he says that he would have loved for her to see how well he played. Alice then invites him into her room, and Jimmy asks if there's really anything special about the boots. Alice says there is, and Jimmy asks who they belong to. Alice then mentions that the boots were for a footballer named Robbie Brewer, who used to play for Manchester City. Jimmy is shocked by this, and as he heads home, he starts doing some research to find out if anyone named Robbie Brewer has played for City before. Unfortunately, Jimmy doesn't find the name in the club's journal, and he suddenly hears the doorbell ringing. As he goes to check who it is, he sees that it's Johnny, who has brought all his things to the house. Jimmy looks confused by this, but Johnny says he's moving in. The next day, at school, Sarah sees Jimmy with his boots, and she tells him that she heard how great he was at the game. As she also praises him, Jimmy thanks her for this. He then asks if she likes football, but she says she doesn't. As he asks what she likes, she takes him to a cemetery and says that she likes coming there to learn about how people died. Jimmy finds this weird, but Sarah asks if he has thought about how he might die. Jimmy says he hasn't, and as he talks about his boots, Sarah asks who they belong to. Jimmy says that they were for someone named Robbie Brewer, and Sarah remembers seeing a gravestone with the same name in the cemetery. As she takes him there, Jimmy says that the Robbie Brewer he's talking about played for City. Sarah then asks if he has asked anyone about it at the City ground. Jimmy says he hasn't, but he thanks her for giving him a great idea. The next day, Jimmy tells Donna that he would like to go to City Stadium to watch a game. She then gives Johnny some money and tells him to take Jimmy to the game. Johnny doesn't seem interested in this, but he agrees to take Jimmy there. On the way, Johnny stops at a nearby restaurant to buy a drink. Before Johnny gets his order, some thugs approach him to collect the money he's holding. They then threaten to keep coming for him until he pays up what he owes. Jimmy is left surprised by this, and as they leave the restaurant, he realizes that Johnny doesn't have any other money to buy tickets for the City game. He looks quite disappointed by this, and decides to head home. Meanwhile, Harry is already at the stadium for the game, and he buys a program from a blind seller at the entrance. Elsewhere, the headmaster tells Eric that the school's next game is against a team called Northmoor. He says that Northmoor has won the cup a couple of times, and their team is so good that it will seem as if Eric and his players are playing against Brazil. The next day, Sarah meets Jimmy and asks if he has found more information about Robbie Brewer. Jimmy says he hasn't, but that he's already leaving school to ask around at City Stadium. Sarah asks if she can come with him, and Jimmy says she can. Almost immediately, Jimmy sees Gordon walking toward them, and he tells Sarah that they have to leave. Sarah doesn't seem scared of Gordon, and she tells Jimmy to wait. As Gordon approaches them, he asks Jimmy if he's dating a weird girl like Sarah. Jimmy doesn't respond, but Sarah says she's his girlfriend. Jimmy seems happy about this, but as Gordon makes fun of him and says that he'll tell the other players about Jimmy's weird girlfriend, he looks disappointed and leaves the school alone. Much later, he arrives at Man City's stadium and asks one of the cleaners there if he can answer some questions for him. The man says he knows nothing about City and that he only works for the club. He adds that he's a Manchester United fan and that Jimmy can ask the person living across the street if he really wants answers. Jimmy thanks him for this, and as he goes to the house, it turns out to be where Eric lives. Jimmy looks shocked and says that he was directed to the house to speak to someone who knows about Manchester City. Eric says he's in the right place, and he invites Jimmy into the house. As Jimmy comes in, he sees a framed City jersey on the wall, as well as some pictures of Eric while he was still playing football. After this, Jimmy asks about Robbie Brewer, but Eric says he has never heard the name before. Jimmy then asks if Eric is the one in the pictures on the wall. Eric says it's him, and he mentions that the pictures are from when he played for Manchester City. Jimmy is shocked by this, but Eric says he has played for some other teams aside from City. He adds that during his debut season with City, he played as a striker and scored 12 goals, including a hat trick against Man United. Jimmy looks amazed by this, and he asks why Eric doesn't say anything about it at school because it could make the players listen to him. Eric then mentions that some of the players, especially Gordon, don't look ready to learn anything from him. Jimmy doesn't believe that he and the other players should suffer for Gordon's lack of seriousness, but Eric says there's more to life than football. He also mentions that it's been hard to rediscover his passion for the sport now that he's retired. After a while, they go outside together, and as Jimmy gazes at Man City Stadium, he asks Eric if that's where the Manchester Schools Cup final will be played. Eric confirms, and Jimmy asks if the PE teacher doesn't want his players to experience what he once did. Eric doesn't answer, and Jimmy eventually heads home. The next day, before the game against Northmoor, Eric tries to give a speech to motivate the players, but the headmaster tells him to let Ken do it, since he used to be a professional player. Eric agrees to step aside, and Jimmy doesn't seem to understand this. After Ken gives his speech, he coaches the team for the game and instructs the players to keep passing the ball to his son. Unfortunately, this strategy doesn't work well, and the team trails by 1 goal at halftime. While Jimmy is wearing his boots confidently, the opposing team's coach admires them. He then says he was a goalkeeper at Manchester United back in the day, and Jimmy takes him to meet Eric. Interestingly, the other coach turns out to be the goalkeeper Eric once scored a hat-trick against, and they greet each other warmly. As Ken overhears their conversation, he says he was a professional too, but when he mentions the club he played for, the other coach ignores him. The players then say they want Eric back as their coach, and Ken looks disappointed. Soon after, Eric coaches the team well, and Jimmy scores 2 goals to win the game. His teammates celebrate with him, and he looks very happy with his performance. After this, Jimmy's school easily gets past their next opponents, and Jimmy scores a hat-trick against one of them. He then becomes the best player on the team, and his teammates, including Psycho, grow closer to him. One day, as they're returning from a game, the school bus breaks down on the road, but luckily, Harry happens to be nearby with his truck. Harry is happy to see Jimmy and offers to give the team a ride home. On the way, Jimmy introduces Harry to Eric, who is pleased to meet a former Man City player. Shortly after, Harry drops off Eric and the other players before taking Jimmy to his mom's workplace. When they arrive, Donna's boss appears to have just tried to attack her, and she runs outside, only to see Harry and Jimmy about to come in. She then tells Harry to take her away, and they all head home together. After a while, Harry drops them off and offers to walk them into the building to make sure they're safe. Donna doesn't think it's necessary, but Harry says he misses her. Suddenly, Johnny comes downstairs and tells Harry to leave immediately. He speaks rudely to Harry, and Donna tries to calm him down. Johnny ignores her and tells Harry to leave because Donna is now his fiancée. Harry looks disappointed when he hears this and leaves right away. Donna then asks Johnny if he's serious about wanting to marry her, and he says he is. Later that night, Jimmy tells Donna he doesn't want her to marry Johnny. As he seems quite serious, Donna says she hasn't even made a decision yet. The next day, Jimmy performs well again during his school's semi-final game, and Gordon seems frustrated by this. A Manchester United scout is present at the game, and Ken tries to convince him to look at his son. Unfortunately, the scout isn't interested in Gordon, and keeps talking about how special Jimmy is. After a while, Jimmy scores 2 goals to help his team reach the final. Later that night, he goes to Alice's house and tells her that everyone keeps saying they don't know Robbie Brewer. Alice says she lost contact with him, and when Jimmy asks why, she says Robbie thought she lied to him. She adds that Robbie had an illness which she kept from him, because she knew how it could affect him. After this, Jimmy invites her to come and watch him play in the cup final. Alice gladly accepts and Jimmy looks happy about this. Elsewhere, Harry discovers that his wife is cheating on him, and they decide to get a divorce. The next day, Donna wishes Jimmy good luck before he leaves for the final. After he leaves, he sees Sarah and asks what she's up to, and she says she's going to the cup final venue. Jimmy seems happy about this, and eventually heads to Alice's house. When he gets to the street, he sees that some men are already demolishing the abandoned building where she's staying. Jimmy tells them to stop because someone is living there, but he doesn't find her inside. As he walks around, he finds Alice lying lifeless on the ground after freezing to death. Jimmy looks horrified, and his boots fall from his hand. After a while, he goes to the stadium, and as he enters the locker room, his teammates cheer for him, but he still looks sad about what happened to Alice. Meanwhile, Ken sees Eric talking to the Man United scout on the field and doesn't look happy about it. He then finds the headmaster and says he wants Jimmy benched because he wants his son to be picked by the scout. The headmaster can't believe it, but Ken threatens to withdraw his donation if he doesn't get what he wants. Here's the bottom line. If you want my money, you do what I say. Elsewhere, Donna realizes that Johnny has been stealing from her, and just as he's about to cheat on her, she hits him and breaks up with him. Shortly after, the headmaster calls Eric outside and tells him to bench Jimmy. Eric is shocked by this, and he tells the headmaster that he can't break Jimmy's heart because of what Ken wants. He then takes the headmaster inside the locker room and tells him to do it himself. As the headmaster says that Jimmy will be benched for the game, Psycho and his other teammates look disappointed by this. They also mention that they won't play if Jimmy isn't playing. If he's not playing, I'm not playing neither. Following this, the headmaster backs down and goes to tell Ken that he won't let Gordon's dad dictate how he runs the school team. Just then, Gordon steals Jimmy's boots and runs out of the stadium to throw them into a canal. Almost immediately, Jimmy notices that his boots are missing, and since Gordon is nowhere to be found, everyone realizes that he took them. When Gordon returns to the stadium, Eric asks for the boots, but the bully denies knowing where they are. Eric then takes Jimmy to a nearby store to get him new boots. Jimmy looks disappointed by this, and he thinks about how he has lost Alice and the boots on the same day. Donna then comes over to tell him that Johnny won't be staying with them anymore. Jimmy doesn't seem bothered by this, and he keeps thinking about how he might perform badly without the magical boots. He eventually leaves to meet his teammates, and as Donna heads to her seat, she also sees Harry at the stadium. He then says that he came to watch Jimmy, and since he's now single again, Donna agrees to sit down next to him. Shortly after, Jimmy leads the team out for the game, and just as expected, he plays badly. The other team then scores 2 goals, and the headmaster is forced to leave his seat to ask what Eric will do. Eric looks sad about the situation, but he mentions that he'll sub Jimmy off at halftime. When the ref blows the whistle for halftime, Harry leaves his seat and heads to the tunnel to encourage Jimmy. Eric also tells him a story from his playing days, and he mentions that Jimmy has to rely on himself whenever he's on the field. Jimmy still thinks he can't be good without his special boots, but Harry says that there's no such thing as magical boots. Jimmy then says that the boots were special for him and Robbie Brewer. Magic boots? Just a bit, sort of. As Harry hears the name, he takes Jimmy to meet the blind program seller, who actually happens to be Robbie. Jimmy is surprised by this, but Robbie mentions that Alice is his mom. He adds that stressing over the illness Alice didn't want to tell him about is why he's currently blind. Harry then asks about his boots, and Robbie says that Alice bought them for him when he was chosen to be a mascot for one of City's games. He also mentions that there's nothing magical about them. Jimmy realizes that the boots didn't improve his performance, and he looks happy about this. After he heads out for the second half, he scores a goal and passes the ball to Gordon for the equalizer. The game continues going on smoothly, and just as it's about to end, Jimmy leads a counterattack and takes the ball into the opponent's half. Just as he gets to the front of the goalkeeper, he stops for a second and kicks the ball to Gordon's face. The ball eventually ends up in the back of the net, and Jimmy's team wins the game. Jimmy's teammates celebrate with him, and Eric also runs to the field to hug Jimmy. After a while, Harry and Donna meet Jimmy to congratulate him, and he looks happy to see that they're back together. As he walks into the tunnel, the Man United scout asks if Jimmy would like to play for Man United, but he says that Eric just informed him about a better offer. The scout looks shocked and asks what could be better than Manchester United, and Jimmy says it's Manchester City. We're better than Man United, son. Manchester. Ken then asks if his son can join Manchester United, but the scout says he's taking the goalkeeper instead. Almost immediately, Sarah comes over to congratulate Jimmy, and he looks happy about this. After he accepts that she's his girlfriend, he heads to the field to celebrate with Eric and his teammates. Even though Jimmy initially thought that the boots were responsible for his great performances, he eventually realized that they weren't magical. Eric and Harry helped him understand that he had to trust in his own ability, and here the movie ends. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an updates. See you in the next video.